G'day cocktail lovers, I hope you've been keeping well. Hope you're ready for Whiskey Sour Day. I mean, most drinks seem to have their day declared by someone. Whiskey Sours definitely deserve their day. Fantastic, classic cocktail. It was one of my early favorite cocktails when I first started getting into cocktails. It's comparatively simple. Whiskey, sugar, lemon, and ideally with something to make it frothy, egg white, aquafaba, or another frothing agent. It's a great drink. And even within that simple frame, you can play with a lot just by changing the whiskey you use, by changing the sort of sugar syrup you use, and of course, there's a lot of playing around the edges of that. And for this Whiskey Sour Day, I am going to do a riff rather than do a straight whiskey sour. And this is really a riff on a riff. Most people who are into cocktails have probably heard of a New York sour, which is a whiskey sour with a red wine float on top. I did last year make a clarified New York sour that I was very happy with. But this year, I'm going to make one I just discovered recently that is a riff on a New York sour. It's called a riff. It's called a New York Stone Sour because it has a liqueur from a stone fruit, namely Apricot, and I'm going to put my own little twist on it as well. But in honour of Whiskey Sour Day, let's make it. First up, the whiskey of your choice, of course. Whiskey sours are often made with a bourbon or a rye whiskey. I'm using an Australian single malt from Starwood. They're Nova, it's like 41%, so it's fairly standard strength for a whiskey. Bourbons are aged in new oak barrels, whereas Starwood tend to age their whiskies in barrels that previously had red wine in them. So it has this very rich, fruity element to it, which I really enjoy. But you go with the whiskey of your choice. First up, 1.5 ounces or 45 mils of whiskey. The stone part of the New York Stone Sour is apricot liqueur or an apricot brandy. I've got this apricot brandy. You might have another one you're able to get locally. Whatever we're going with, it's just half an ounce or 15 mils of apricot liqueur. The sour element is lemon juice for a whiskey sour. The New York and the New York Stone Sour, no exception. So we're going to do 3/4 of an ounce, around 22.5 mils of lemon juice. A standard whiskey sour has sugar or sugar syrup, and this recipe also calls for orange juice. So my own little twist I'm doing is my blood orange oleosaccharum clarified cordial magic thing that I've made. This is combining the orange juice element and the sugar syrup element all in one. So I'm looking at the recipe. It said to do half an ounce of orange juice and half an ounce of sugar syrup. I'm going to do 3/4 of an ounce of this combined one, and going to add this about 25 mils of my orange and sugar syrup mix. If you're doing it separately, do 15 mils orange juice and 10 mils of sugar syrup. We want a foaming agent in here, or at least I do. This is optional, you don't have to do this, but I quite like the foaming agent, and I'm hoping this will work well with a red wine float. When you're doing a foaming agent on a whiskey sour, egg white is traditional. If you don't like egg white, or if you're vegan, you can use aquafaba, which is essentially the juice from a can of chickpeas or butter beans, that type of thing. There's also various products you can get little droppers of, which I have here. This one's called Wonder Foam. So I'm going to add about 6 or 7 drops of Wonder Foam because I want my cocktail to be nice and foamy. When you're using egg white or aquafaba, I'm a big recommender of do a dry shake, then a wet shake. Dry shake means shaking without ice, then you add ice and shake it again for a wet shake to chill it and dilute a little. I have found from experience, this is also a good thing to do with the Wonder Foam because you want to shake it a lot. So I've got my Boston shaker, put the two halves together, bang it in hard and give it a really solid shake for about 15 seconds. Dry shake done, we add ice to our shaker, put it together again, bang it in hard, and again, really solid shake for about 15 seconds. Now I'm going to strain this into a rocks glass with a big chunk of ice. Some people prefer to do this without ice. I like having a big chunk of ice in my glass. So we strain this in. We get a nice head of foam on there. But that's not all, we want to do a red wine float as well. The final touch is a float of red wine. And it's floating! I didn't try this and fail with a wine before. This is the first time. It's all perfect. Yeah, you may have guessed, this is not my first attempt, but look at that float! I love it! The interestingly coloured whiskey sour, red wine float, the foam, it's beautiful. I love it. I've not made this one before. Taste test time. Again, I love doing all the riffs and the twists and whatnot. I probably like a classic whiskey sour more, but sipping the whiskey sour through that red wine is a thing all of its own. You should try it at least once if you like whiskey at all. If you like a whiskey sour, try a version of the New York sour with the red wine float. It's a fun riff, and this has been an interesting experience for me making this one for Whiskey Sour Day. Wherever you are, whether it's Whiskey Sour Day or another day, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're looking after the people around you as well. And until I see you again, cheers.